What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and today I'm going to be speaking about something a little bit different. An issue that I've seen developing over the past 5 years or so, and that is body image issues and body dysmorphia, particularly amongst Gen Z with a focus on Love Island. Now, the lean, athletic physique has always been desired and sought after, which is why we see it in so many films and on TV, which is absolutely fine, whatever sells. But we've reached an alarming stage where now we're comparing normal healthy men with those physiques and labeling them as fat. Now, before you switch off, I'm not one of those bitter Bettys struggling to get in shape who spends their whole life throwing stones at those who are lean. Over the years, I've built a lean and aesthetic physique, but I have to call this out of principle because it's getting out of hand. In this video, I'm going to go through what body dysmorphia actually is, how to identify it in yourself and others, and what we can do as a society to prevent matters getting even worse. So what is body dysmorphia? Body dysmorphia is a mental health condition in which you can't stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance. Now, on the face of it, this only affects the individual. The problem we now have is that those who are suffering with body dysmorphia and have warped views of their body image are then projecting those views on other people, who are then comparing themselves and also developing body dysmorphia. And we see a perfect example of this on the current series of Love Island. Now, for those of you that don't know what Love Island is, it's a dating show where everyday people go on in a bid to find love. Shallow, I know, but it is what it is. Anyways, on Love Island, the goal is to get attractive men and women so they get more views, which is perfectly normal, and again, I completely understand this. So in previous years, there seems to have been a bit of a focus on the men having lean aesthetic physiques. But this year, probably in a bid to be more representative, they've gone for a mixed bag. Some people that are lean and some people that are more normal. And unfortunately, one of the normal physiques are being labelled as fat. So here we have George Fensom. From looking at things, he seems like a perfectly normal and seemingly healthy man. If I were to guesstimate his body fat, I would say somewhere around 20%. So if we take a look at this chart, we can see the different degrees of body fat and where an average man sits. So going by this chart, we can see that the average man is 18 to 24% body fat. George Fensom sits at the lower end of that scale, meaning that if he were to go to his GP, the GP would think his body fat was perfectly normal. But because of body image issues and how delusional social media has become, look at some of the comments that follow. So if we go onto the official Love Island Instagram page and scroll down to the picture of George, let's see what people say about his body. FYI, George has landed himself in a bit of hot water because of an old tweet he made and the people he hangs around with. It's going off in the comments, people are getting personal, and look, and dad bods. This guy again is 20%, how has he got a dad bod? Carry on scrolling down, love handles or Love Island, savage. View reply, I can't cope, it's just mental. Oh wait, there's more, scroll down, he's got the dad bod as well as the dad jokes. Really? Now, I'm not for a minute going to sit here and say George is lean or shredded, because he's not, but his body fat is perfectly normal. And this is what people with body dysmorphia will struggle to accept. They will compare someone leaner, someone like an actor or a fitness model, to people like George or themselves and think they're fat. But as I will say to anybody suffering with body dysmorphia, it's not an A, therefore B. Somebody who earns £100,000 a year doesn't suddenly become poor just because there are people out there earning £1 million a year. Just because we have someone who is 8% body fat and someone who is 20%, it doesn't mean that we have to compare them. They can coexist, both are within a healthy body fat range, they can be appraised on their own merit. Also, the reason we need to cut George some slack is because George is not a fitness model or bodybuilder trying to be single-digit body fat. He's a normal everyday guy that goes to the gym. So if we compare him to a shredded influencer, we begin to distort things. Anyways, moving on, how do we spot body dysmorphia in ourselves and others? The first way is, are you objectively considered a healthy and or lean individual? So for example, I like to keep my body fat between 10 and 15% all year, When I'm 15% body fat, I don't suddenly think I'm fat just because I'm not as lean as I was at 10%. When I step back and look at people in the gym or around me, I realize that I'm leaner than most people, even at 15%. So there's no point focusing all my energy on one or two outliers that are leaner than me. If we don't step back and look at the bigger picture, we run a high risk of finding problems that aren't there. The second way to spot body dysmorphia is when a person can't take a compliment. For example, you might see someone down the gym and go, "Oh, you're looking lean, bro," and they will grab fat and be like, "Yeah, just need to lose that last little bit." Evidently, they're not happy with their current level of leanness. And the final thing to look out for are people that are excessively looking in the mirror or never looking at all. There are two sides of the scale. You get some people who are always looking at themselves in the gym. They have to check themselves out in car windows and shop windows. They can't stop looking at themselves. Now, it may seem to an outsider like vanity, but they're actually looking to reassure themselves that they still look good. And if any of these symptoms go unnoticed and get worse, we could veer into eating disorder territory. Now, when I started training almost 20 years ago, this condition disproportionately affected bodybuilders, but we weren't aware of it then. Because bodybuilders are always trying to be bigger and leaner, they're always comparing themselves and they're never satisfied. But now, because those ripped six-pack abs are now sought after by everyone, it's become much more of a mainstream problem. And to be honest, at times in the past, I've struggled with mild body dysmorphia. For those people each year who are trying to improve their performance and or their physique, we are most at risk of body dysmorphia. Coupled with the fact that I would attend bodybuilding gyms where most people were taking steroids, I was literally getting dwarfed. Matter of fact, I remember one time I was in this gym and somebody actually asked me whether I was like an 800 meter runner or did long distance. I couldn't believe it because when I left that bodybuilding gym, most people would say that I was quite big. But of course, next to them, it was ridiculous. I looked like Mo Farah. So how did I stop body dysmorphia developing in myself, and what can we do as a society? The first thing is to be as objective as possible and look at the data. And to cite George as an example, what we ought to do is look at the data. If the average man is sitting between 18 and 24%, and George falls in that category, then we shouldn't call him fat. And the second thing is to stop comparing yourself to fitness influencers and movie stars that are on steroids. For most natural people that get much below, let's say 8 or 9% body fat, you will start to feel horrendous. Your hormones will be thrown out of whack. Your body will start to fear for its survival. But when you're on steroids, you can get to that territory, and because of external hormones, you can feel a lot better. So don't compare yourself. It's not like with like. If you're trying to get shredded and stay there all year, for most people, you're fighting a losing battle. And going back to that scale, I would say shredded is the lower end of that athletic range. So I would say 8 to 9% body fat or less. Also, side note, one thing that we fail to consider when we look at physiques like Michael B. Jordan in Creed, Brad Pitt in Fight Club, or Ryan Reynolds in Blade Trinity, these actors only get into that condition for like 1 to 2 weeks a year just to shoot the film. Once they finish shooting the film, most people return to baseline, a more normal level of body fat. And a lot of fitness influencers confess to doing the same. They get really shredded for a photo shoot or a holiday, take all of their photos and post those photos throughout the year. When they return to a higher, more normal level of body fat, of course, they don't post. So don't be deceived into thinking your body goals influencer or actor stays at 7% all year. Not if they're natural anyway. And the final thing is that when we spot body dysmorphia, we need to call it out. I've watched YouTube videos where fitness influencers are normally say 6 or 7% body fat, and they get up to 12% body fat, and they describe it as letting themselves go. The crazy thing about all of this is that this is not an attention-seeking child in primary school who draws really well but says their drawing is rubbish. They genuinely think because of this mental health condition that they are fat and out of shape. It's nuts. They need help. We need to put an end to all of it. So hopefully you found this video helpful and informative and now are better placed to deal with body dysmorphia. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful. Comment below, let me know how you found it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.